Okay, let's practice for test 10. Sometime I'm going to usually go through these writing out the problem, but also be showing examples of how to use either the talker or the calculator to express answers or steps involved with these math problems as well. So let's jump right in. So problem number one, what is the difference when the product of zero point 0.3 and zero point 0.7 is subtracted from the sum of zero point 0.3 and zero point 0.7? So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to do it by writing it out. So we've got a product of zero point 0.3 and zero point 0.7, and we've got the sum of zero point 0.3 and zero point 0.7. And once we get both of those, we're going to subtract the product from the sum. So let's do the sum first. So the sum is adding together 0 0.3 plus 0 0.7, and we get 1.0. The product, here we go, is multiplying. So 0 0.3 times 0 0.7. So that's going to be 7 times 3 is 21. And we have two decimal places, 1, 2. So that's 0.21 for the product. Now we are going to, I'm going to switch to red here for this final step. We're going to subtract the sum, the product from the sum. So we have 1.0 minus 0.21. All right, we've got more decimal places on that bottom number. So we need to go that far on the top. So we have put the 0 there. We can't take 1 from 0, so we borrow from that one, turn that to a 0, which turns this to a 9, which turns this to a 10. So that makes 10 minus 1, 9, 9 minus 2, 7, 0 minus 0, 0. And the decimal place comes down. So 0.79. Now I'm going to show you how to do this with your calculator now. So let me make this screen a little bit smaller over here to the side so we can still see enough reminders of what the problem was. All right, and then I'm going to open up my calculator here. Okay, so your calculator might look a little different than this. You will definitely have all your numbers, your plus, minus, multiply, divide, but obviously, oops, let me clear this. I did this earlier. Um, you will also want to use parentheses a lot of the time because parentheses will let us do more than one step at once because we can bunch together different steps of the problem so that it does things in the correct order. So in this problem, we have a product, we have a sum, and then we're taking a difference. So then we're subtracting. So we're doing three different things all in one problem. As we said before, the sum is going to probably be the biggest one, which we found out already from writing, since we're going to be taking away from that. So let's start with the sum, and we can put that in parentheses. So that mini problem, we can do a left parentheses. You see it shows up top here, and do 0.3 plus 0.7. And then do an end parentheses, and it says 1. That's what we got in that first step there. Okay, then we are going to subtract the product that we got of those two numbers. So we're going to group that one together with its own set of parentheses. So we do left parenthesis 0.3 times 0.7 and parentheses. Okay, now this 0.21, you can see, is what we got from the second step, getting the product. It's not showing us the full answer to the problem yet until we hit equals. And then it takes all three steps together, the first step, the second step, and subtracting the second step from the first step to get 0.79. Okay, so that's the way that you can show me how to do this problem on the calculator by typing it all out with the parentheses, making sure that you do them in the correct order so that it'll get you the correct answer. This problem would be a bit difficult to do on the talker here. So you see, if we are, let me go to the home screen here. So if you're on the home screen, basically you have two options. You can use your QWERTY or your numbers here to try and do your math problems, but you'll notice no parentheses. So you're going to have to do it in different steps. You'll also notice no subtraction or addition here on the QWERTY numbers, the keyboard numbers. And if you go to the math numbers, you have multiplication, minus, addition, but no parentheses there either. So if we had parentheses here, we might be able to do, and a decimal. So parentheses and a decimal, we might be able to put it all together. So we might look into maybe adding those on our notepad so that we have maybe here on this first math page, left and a right parentheses and a period. That way we could do everything we just did with the calculator. But for right now, we don't have that feature. And so it would be very cumbersome to express this one with the calculator. Okay, let's go back to the math problems and go on to the next one. Our next math problem, which digit in this long number is in the 1 billionth place? Okay, so for this, basically, I would just put my pencil and count backwards, naming all the places until I get to the right one. So I'm going to switch to my highlighter. Oops, turn my stylus on, switch to my highlighter. This is the ones place. This is the tens place. This is the hundreds place. This is 1,000s, 10,000s, 100,000s, 1,000,000, 10,000,000, 100,000,000, 1 billion, 1 billion. That's what we're going for. So right here would be the digit. So the answer on that one would just be 3. If you had, now this one, you could look at this number and figure in your head which of these are. You could perhaps even just point to the proper digit. You could do that with your finger. You could go to your talker on the math page and you could go to your talker on the QWERTY page and go to numbers and hit, let me clear that, and then hit space. So you have a couple of different ways for you to give your answer. Either with talker could be easy, with your finger could be easy, and with the calculator. Okay, let's go to our next problem. The sales tax rate is 6%. How much money is 6% of $18? Okay, so if I'm going to do this, I'm going to switch to blue here. I'm going to set up this is a multiplication problem where I have 18. 6% can be written as 0.06. So that's 6 hundredths. That's the same, you can say it the same way. So it's times 0.06 of $18. Okay. All right, so if we do this as multiplication, 6 times 8 is 48. So we put the 8 here and the 4 up here. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 4 is 12. And then we have 1, 2 decimal places, so I'm going to put that right there. And so $1.28 is our answer. Okay, So how would we write this with the calculator? Let's go to the calculator real quick. Or actually, I'm going to make this smaller so I remember the numbers of the problem and go to our calculator. Okay, clear. Always remember to clear before you go to a new problem. We have $18 and we want to find 6% of $18. So this is a multiplication problem and we want to multiply it by 0.06. The same thing we just did with writing, but we're doing it on the calculator and we hit enter. And I totally got my answer wrong. How did I do that? Because 6 plus 4 is not 12. Oh my goodness. Ah, go back, go back. All right. Here we go. Here we go. Big mistake, big mistake. All right. We're going to have to edit that one out. Let's try this again. Okay. All right. So if we were setting this up, we would set it up as a multiplication where we have, oops, we are on the wrong slide. Here we go. $18 times 0.06. 6 times 8 is 48. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 4 is 10. And we have two decimal places. So 1, 2. So we've got 1.08, and that's dollars for our answer. All right. If we were going to do this with a calculator, so get my calculator on up here. Oh no, did I lose my calculator? That's not good at all. Okay, hold on here. Wrong one, wrong one, wrong. Let me go back to my share page to make sure you're seeing everything you need to see. Hold on. Sorry about that. And calculator, sure. All right. So back to the calculator. So if we were to type this in on the calculator, 18 times 0.06 and then hit equals, we get the 1.08. And don't forget that's money, so you would put that on there. If you wanted to mention that on your talker, let's see, I think you might have some, do you have dollar? Actually, let's see, let's go to math. And you would do 18. Oops, let me clear that up. And it didn't even say it out loud. Okay. 18 times. See, now you're going back and forth between here and here. And then let me see what we can do with the money page. Maybe we do it better here. 18, and there's no times. All right. Finally, 18 times 0.06, managed to get it up in the spoken field there. Hit equals. Oh my goodness, it didn't read it out loud. Again, so for right now, until we get a few more of these buttons more easily available on the talker, um, the calculator is probably the best option on this one if you don't do it by hand. Okay, let's go back to our math problems and go to the next one. All right. Estimate the sum of 5,146 and 8,742 to the nearest thousand. Okay, to the nearest thousand. So if we round to the nearest thousand and then add them together to make a sum, we've got the nearest thousand for this guy is 5,000. And the nearest thousand for this guy is 9,000. So altogether, 0, 0, 0, and 5 plus 9 is 14. So 14,000. Now, if you were asked this question and you had your calculator, yes, you could type in this number, but it's asking you to estimate them to the nearest thousand. So if you did that, you would want to round them probably before you plug them into the calculator to show that you understood the problem. So if you did that, so if you were trying to show that over here, I would probably say, okay, the first part, I round it, I'm going to say 5,000 and parentheses. And then the second part, I'm going to round that one too to 9,000, nearest thousand, and hit enter, and I get 14,000. If you had actually used the numbers and didn't do any rounding, 5146 plus 874, I'm not sure if that number is a 3 or a 2. Let me see if I can move it a smidge over. A 2. To enter 13,888. And if you round that number, that becomes 14,000, similar to our answer right here. Again, if you did this in your head, adding those two together, you could have just said, I would probably do the math page on this one and do, you know, what was it? 5,000 plus 9,000 equals, and that doesn't even go up that high here. So we're in the math. So we'll have to go back to the QWERTY and do 5,000. And then addition is not there. So we're going to go over here. Plus, and then back to here. 5,000 plus 9,000. And then to say equals, you got to go here. So yeah, this is pretty cumbersome because you're going back and forth using the resources you have on the math page with the resources that you have on the keyboard page to try and say your. So yeah, it's a little bit cumbersome, but you can do it that way if that's what is most comfortable for you. Let's move on to the next one. All right. We have got a division problem here of 150,750 divided by 50. Okay, so if I'm going to do this, first of all, I would probably just take 10 off of both and do that. You could still do the long division with the 50, but I'm just going to take both the zeros off. They cancel each other off. And do 5 into 15075. You could put both zeros there, but basically it's just moving the decimal place over and you'll end up with the same answer either way. All right, so doing the long division on this, 5 goes into 15 3 times. Here, let me get a Come on. Oh, come on. 3 times 5 is 15. Bring down to the 0, so that's a 0. Then we bring down the 7. 5 goes into 7 one time. So minus 5, 25. So then, come on, write it. 5 times 5 is 25. And that should be our answer, 3015. Okay, if we do this with the calculator, that should be nice and easy. With the calculator, pop up right there. Clear it from the last problem. And we have got, we'll do a parentheses. If you want to bunch it together, you could probably just type this all out. You can do, but I will do a parentheses here for the numerator and then end parentheses and then divide by the denominator. So 1, 5, 0, 7, 5, 0, end parentheses, divided by 5, 0, end parentheses. So you can see we have it up there. That's the same thing as what we were asked. When I hit n equals, I get 3015 like we did when we wrote it out. See, you can write it this way, doing a parentheses for the numerator and a parentheses for the denominator. Since there's only one number in each place, I could have also just done it without any parentheses. See, if I do 1, 5, 0, 7, 5, 0, divided by 5, 0 equals same answer. Okay? All right. Let's move on to the next one. What is the average of 93, 75, and 62? Okay, to get the average, we're going to have to add those three numbers up and then divide them by the number of numbers that we have to figure out what the average is. So we've got 93, 75, 62. I add those up. We get 3 plus 5 is 8, plus 2 is 10. Put the 0 down, carry the 1. 9 plus 1 is 10, plus 7 is 17, plus 6 is 23. So 230 is the sum. And when I take 230 and divide by 3, I get 3 goes into 23 7 times. 7 times 3 is 21. 20. 3 goes into 20 6 times. 6 times 3 is 18. And then you get 0. And then if I bring a 0, 3 goes into 26. So this is going to keep giving me sixes. All right, and I put that bar over there, so the 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6. Or you could say just remainder of 2. You could say 76 with a remainder of 2, or 76, 6 with a line over it. Or if you know that 0.66666 is 2/3, you could also say 76 and 2/3. So there's a couple of different ways you could put that answer, and all of them would be correct. Let's see what we would do with the calculator, okay? So we have got the averages of, let me move this back over. All right, so if we wanted to do this again, all in one line, we could use our handy dandy parentheses. So we could do the first step of the problem of adding the three together, all within a parentheses, and then we can divide by the number of numbers that we had. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to put a parenthesis, and then I'm going to do the sum, 93 plus 75 plus 62 and then end parentheses. So altogether they equaled 230. And then I'm going to divide by the total number of numbers, which was 3, and hit enter. And so the average is 76.6666666. And that means, that is 76 with, in this case, we could say remainder of 2, or we could turn that into a fraction, which is 2/3. Your calculator, depending on which calculator you're using, might already do that for you if it's in a certain um, fraction format. Okay, let's go on to the next problem. We need to add and reduce. Oops. Oh no, I lost my PowerPoint. Losing it here. Let me go back to that. And then I have to go back to my Zoom to make sure I'm sharing the correct thing here. PowerPoint, share. All right, back to that. Get down to here. Where did we leave off? All right, add and reduce. Hopefully you see that. Okay, so we're adding and reducing 17 divided by 40 plus 15 divided by 40. Okay. So let's add them together. Right now, they have the same denominator, which is fantastic, which means we can just add the numerators. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that right on up here. All right, so if we know that it's going to have 40 on the bottom, 17 plus 15, I can do that over here to the side. 32 divided by 40. Now, that can be reduced, so let's work on that next. So we've got 32 divided by 40. We can see that we can divide those in half. So let's do that. 16 divided by 20. Okay, those are both still even. So I think we can see that 4 goes into both 16 and 20. So let's divide both by 4. 16 divided by 4 is 4. 20 divided by 4 is 5. And that's the lowest that we can go to reducing the fraction. That is our answer. Okay. So how would we do this with our calculator? All right, I would try to do the same steps because we want to get the fraction in the right form here. So let me get out our calculator and clear it. Okay, so again, if the denominators are the same, we're going to add together that numerator. 17 plus 15 equals 32. Okay, so we have 32 divided by 40. So you might need to do this in your head. You might need to just use the calculator as a way to express your answers. But because if we do 32 divided by 40 here, we'll get it as a fraction. Now, if you had, I will get it as a decimal for this feature, but if you have a different type of calculator, it might give it to you as the fraction. If that's the case, it would probably give you the most reduced version. But here we're going to see it is 0.8. Okay, so that is the decimal form. So instead, you're going to have to to get it in the right reduced form, you might know that this means 8/10. So that kind of brings it down to you. You could start with 8/10, which is 8 over 10, and say, okay, we could knock that in half. That would be 4 divided by 5. If we take 8 and divide it in half and 10 divided in half, here, I'll do it over here on the side. So 0.8, to follow what I'm doing here, I'm going to switch to green, okay? So if you type this in and you got the fraction 0.8, this means 8/10, which could be written as 8 over 10. And if you further reduce it, 8 divided by 2 is 4, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. So you might need to take a decimal if you're using calculators and you don't have it in a fraction mode and you are asked to give a reduced fraction, you might have to take that decimal answer to try to get it into a fraction. Or you might need to take the individual steps in the problem, like just getting the 32 reduced down and the 40 reduced down to whatever their largest common multiple. Okay? All right, moving on to the next one. How much is 3/4 of 5 dozen? All right, well, if we're doing this by calculating, we have to determine what 5 dozen is, and then we need to find 3/4 of it. You could do this by drawing, you could do this by using multiplication, you do this a variety of ways. A dozen is 12. So 5 dozen, 5 times 12 equals 60. So what we're really asking here is what is 3/4 of 60? So 60, you can say over 1 times 3/4. So 60 times 3, 6 times 3 is 18, and then that 0 on the end, and 4 on the bottom. And then you can go ahead and do that last division problem. There are a number of different ways that you can do this, but if you do that, let's do this as long division. 4 goes into 180. 4 goes into 18 4 times, so you get 16. Get 2, bring down the 0. 4 goes into 25 times. So 180 divided by 4 is 45. Okay, there are other ways you could do this. Maybe you know that 3/4 is actually 0.75, or maybe you could figure that out. If we were doing this with a calculator, one way to do it would be to take it. Well, if you were to do it all in one step, you could say, okay, first we need to get our 5 dozen. So 5 times 12 and parentheses. And we want 3/4 of that. So we can multiply by 3/4. 3 divided by 4. You could do it that way, which is also 0.75, or you can multiply it by 0.75, and you get the answer is 45. All right, moving on to number 10. We need to write 1/3 as a fraction with 9 as the denominator. Okay, so we've got 1/3, and we need to multiply it by something that has the same number on top and on bottom, because that's multiplying by 1. And you want to end up with it to have 9 in the denominator. Okay, we know that 3 times 3 is 9, so that means that this in the middle here has got to be 3 over 3, because that is equal to 1. And when you multiply that, that means our numerator is going to be 3. So our answer will be 3 over 9. Okay, if you're going to do that with the calculator, you might just have to type your answer with the calculator. Let's see. So if you start with 1/3 and you want to have 9 in the denominator, you could figure out what's in the numerator by saying, okay, what is 9 times 1/3? Oops, not that. 9 times 1 divided by 3. Oh, why is that not working for me here? 9 times 1 divided by 3. There we go. and that is equal to a third. Oh, that's for the parentheses. If I hit equal, then that equals 3. And that'll give you an idea of what needs to be on the numerator if 9 is on the denominator. But you really just need to figure out what do you need to multiply that denominator by to get the new denominator. And then you also need to multiply the numerator by that number to get the new numerator. Okay, let's go to the next problem. What is the least common multiple of 4, 6, and 7? All right, so if we're writing this out, 4, 6, and 7, I'm going to make a little table here. 4 times 1 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 3 is 12, 4 times 4 is 16, 4 times 5 is 20, 4 times 6 is 24, and 4 times 7 is 28. And we'll see. That might be it because we know we'll have to see if we have to go further than that. Okay. All right. We've got 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. So that is a least common multiple for 4 and 6, but it is not for 7. Okay, so let's keep going. All right, 6 times 3 is 18. 6 times 4 is 24. Those show up for both 4 and 6, but 24 is not a common multiple for 7. So let's keep going. 6 times 5 is 30. Okay, 6 times 6 is 36. Again, okay, we're going to have to go a little bit higher here. So after 28, 7 times 4, 7 times, 4 times 8 is 32. 4 times 9 is 36. Okay, so those two are in common, but that doesn't show up in 7. So let's keep going. 4 times 10 is 40. 4 times 11 is 44. I'm trying to find one where it's got 7 in it. So hold on. Why is this not working? 4 times 7, or 4 times 12 is 48. So let's see here. I picked some hard ones here. Well, let's look at what 4 times 7 is. That one is 28. 4 times 7 is 28, but 28 doesn't work with 6. So what about 8 times 7? 8 times 7 is going to be 56, right? 8 times 7 is 56. Does 6 go into that? I don't think so, because 6 times 9 is 54. So we got to keep going. So 12 times 7 is 77, 84. So 12 times 7, 84. I think that one might work because 12, 4 can go into 12, 6 can go into 12. 12 times 7, 84. Oh my goodness. I picked some hard numbers for that one. So the least common multiple for 4, 7, and 6 is 84. Wow. So if you were trying to figure this out, you would be trying a lot of things to get up there with the calculator. So I'm going to jump over that, showing you that one. I think that your test would probably have given you a nice, easier number that you would have gotten to well before the numbers that I picked. So we're going to just jump to number 11 here. What is the area of this rectangle? All right. So you need to do base times height. So we take those two dimensions and multiply them together. 90 centimeters times 25 centimeters. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 9 is 45. Put a 0 placement there. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 9 is 18. Add them up. 0, 5, 12, 2. So we get 2,250 centimeters, and that is centimeters squared. Come on, centimeters squared. All right. Okay, so if you were doing this on the calculator, that would be a little bit quicker because it would crunch it out for you. Did I lose my calculator again? Ay, 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 hold on. Be careful how I close things. Okay, let's make sure that I'm showing this on the Zoom. Okay. All right, and then we would simply go 90. Hello, why is it not doing this? Okay, clear. 90 times 25 equals 2,250. Is that what I have when I did it by hand? Let's see. 2,250 centimeters squared. All right, let's move on to number 12. The diameter of a plate is 12 inches. What is the circumference of the plate? Okay, so let's draw the plate. The diameter of the plate is 12 inches. For circumference, we have the equation. The circumference equals 2 pi r. All right, so if the diameter is 12 inches, then the radius has got to be half of that, so that's 6 inches. So the circumference then is going to be 2, come on, right? 2 times pi, which is 3.14, times, come on, 6. Okay, so if we calculate that out by hand, that ends up 2 times 6 is 12. So I'm just going to do 3.14 times 12. Come on, put it right for me. Come on, come on, come on. So 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 3 is 6. And then put a 0 right there for a placeholder. And 1 times 4 is 4. 1, 3. Add them up. 8, 6, 7, 3. Sorry, it's so messy. And 2 decimal places. So 37.68 inches all the way around the plate. Okay, so let's see what it is with the calculator. All right, 2 pi r is our equation. Let me clear this out. We have 2 times pi, which I'm going to put in parentheses here, 3.14 times the radius, which is half of the diameter. So I'm going to put that in parentheses. If the diameter is 12, I've got to divide that by 2. Oh, come on. Let me try that again. 2 times 3.14 times half the diameter, which is 6 for the radius, and hit equals. So 2 times 3.14 times 6 equals 37.68 inches. So that's how you do it with the calculator. Okay, so let's write the decimal for 15 and 6/2000s. Well, 15 dot, this is tenths place, hundreds place, thousands place, thousands place. Oops, I should put the 6 right there. 6 in the thousands place. So 10, hundreds, thousands. And if you had your calculator, you could just type your answer in there. 15 point tens, hundreds, thousands. Or if you have your talker, go to your home page there, you could write 15 period tens, hundreds, 6 in the thousands place. What? Why did that clear that? Let me try that again. 15.006. Oh my goodness, I don't know why I didn't do that correctly. Anyway, okay, so 15.006. All right, solve 5 minus m equals 0.7. Okay, let's do that. 5 minus m equals 0.7. Well, we want to solve for m. So 5 minus m equals 0.7. Let's add m to both sides. So if we add m, now we have 5, because those two will cancel out, equals 0.7 plus m. So let's subtract 0.7 from both sides. So now we have 5 minus 0.7 equals m. So that's going to be 4.3 equals m. So how would we do this with the calculator to show our steps? Well, clear this up. We have 0.7, and we want to rewrite it so that we're solving for m. So if we add m to both sides and we subtract 0.7 from both sides, now m is over here instead of 0.7, and we end up with just 5 minus 0.7 equals 4.3. So sometimes you might want to move it around before you put it in the calculator. Sometimes you can use parentheses to put it in the calculator so that it's not so important that you move it around. It depends on the problem. All right, so let's look at number 15. We need to add these three numbers. So in writing, I'm just going to go ahead and do that 10. And be sure that you line them up with the decimal point, okay? 3.5 and 0.75. Okay, so in the hundreds place, we have a 5. In the tens place, we have 5 plus 7 is 12. Carry the 1. 3 plus 1 is 4, and 1, so 14.25. This is one of the things that calculators are super great at because you can just type them all in. You don't have to worry about lining them up because the calculator will keep that straight for you. So 10 plus 3.5 plus 0.75 equals Oh, see why that came up wrong? I wasn't careful when I typed. Let's try that again. 10 plus 3.5. Good, it showed up right that time. Plus 0.75. Now, if I did it right, we should get the same answer, 14.25. All right. And then for this one, we are multiplying. So you can do this in two different steps. I am going to do it like this. 0.2 times 0.4. So 2 times 4 is 8. And we have two decimal places here. So 1, 2. So that's 0.08. So now we have 0.08, and we have to multiply it by 0.6. So 6 times 8 is 48. And we have 1, 2, 3 decimal places. 1, 2, 3. So that means there's a 0 right there and a decimal place here. So it's 0.048 for the answer. Okay, let's see if we have to use parentheses or not on our calculator. We might have to. Let's try it without parentheses first. So we had 0.2 times 0.4 times 0.6 equals 0.48. Oh, you notice it's not the same. That's an indication we may have done something wrong, and it's true. Yeah, I had a mistake with that dot again, so let's try it again. 0.2. Nope, see that dot's already missing. Try again. 0.2 times, oops, not times, times 0.4 times 0.6 equals 0.048. All right, so there we go. On to the next one. We're getting there. We're getting there. All right, we have 0.28 divided by 4. So I'm going to do this as long division. 0.28 divided by 4. Your decimal's right there because it goes up from where you have it. 4 goes into 2 0 times. 4 goes into 28 7 times. So we put a 28 there. 28 minus 28 is 0. So 0.07. Or with the calculator, you can just type that in. That was 0.28 divided by 4. 0.28 divided by 4 equals 0.07. Okay, on to the next one. We've got 0.84 divided by zero point 0.4. So I'm going to do that as long division again. 0.84, 0.4. All right. I'm going to move the decimal place over one spot. So that means the decimal's right there. 4 goes into 8 2 times. Bring the 4 down. And 1 time for that. So 2 point, come on, right. 4 minus 4 is 0. So 2.1 is our answer. If we go over here to the calculator, clear it out from the last one, 0.84 divided by zero point 0.4 equals 2.1. All right, on to the next problem. All right, we have got some mixed fractions here. And we also notice that this fraction here is bigger than this fraction here. So we're going to have to be borrowing from the whole number a little bit to be able to get this to all work out. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so I am going to go ahead and rewrite this first number as 8, and then I'm going to add 3 to the numerator, 8 and 4/3. So 9 and 1/3 and 8 and 4/3 are the same thing. But now that we have 8 and 4/3, we can have enough of a fraction that the fractions can subtract from each other and the whole numbers can subtract from each other. So the 4/3 minus 2/3 is going to give us 2/3 of a 2/3, and the whole numbers 8 minus 3 is going to be 5. Also, little hint here that 2/3, when we see it as a decimal, is going to look like this. So 5 and 2/3, if we see it in a decimal form, it's going to be 666666667, or 6 with a bar over it. Okay, so let's see what we do when we do the calculator. All right, we can, I'm going to use some parentheses so I can do this all at once. So we had 9 1/3. Okay, so the first number, I'm going to nestle some parentheses here. So we have 9 plus 1/3 for our first number. And then we are subtracting the second number. Make sure you use parentheses on that one too. That one's going to be 3 plus 2/3. But you got to be careful that you put in all the right parentheses. Okay? And then you hit, let me see, we have a left parentheses and a right parentheses. So that's all of the first number. And it has a fraction there, so with a left and a right. And then the second number has a left and a right, and then the fraction has a left and a right. So they should all be balanced. So when I hit equals, it should come out as 5.66666667, like I said. So where this decimal is equivalent to 2/3. After a while, you get used to some of the regular ones you see all the time, like a quarter, or 2/3, or a third, as being able to understand that that decimal is the same as that fraction. But it'll come with practice. All right, we need to mentally calculate 15.4 times 1,000. Now, 1,000 has a lot of zeros in it, just like 10 or 100 or 10,000. And so basically, we can do that by just adding those zeros in those places. So if we start with 15.4 and multiply it by 10, you get 154. You multiply it by 100, you get 1,540. And you all multiply it by 1,000, you should get 15,400. So 15,400, because you are moving the decimal place over 1, 2, 3 places. So 15.4, 1, 2, 3 places, giving you 15,400. And we can double check that with our calculator. So 15.4 times 1,000 equals 15,400. So I think that's all I have for you today. Hopefully this helps you show you how you can use your calculator or your talker to help communicate your steps in your math. Good luck on your math. Bye now.